Tell me your revenge stories. So, I was working at a 7-Eleven for just shy of a year. The store was a franchise, which means it was independently owned by a Lebanese guy whose IQ was probably somewhere in the 80s. He treated us all like shit, and the only person who made more than minimum wage was the useless clerk he was cheating on his wife with, who, for some reason, made 15 an hour. This guy never did anything by the book. If he thought it would make him more money, then the law didn't apply to him. Nobody at the store ever got a lunch. We were barely afforded smoke breaks, and we weren't allowed to eat while on the clock. In California, when you work more than 5 hours without a lunch, you're supposed to get paid an extra hour's wages, which counts toward overtime. We didn't get that either. On top of that, when he did payroll, he wouldn't actually go by when you clocked in and out. He went by the schedule he wrote. So if you stayed an extra hour or two to help out when it got busy, you'd be working for free, because the hours wouldn't show up. Also, your schedule was subject to change whenever he felt like it. There were several times he wrote me up for showing up late, because he would change my shift without telling me. So, here's where the trouble starts. Whenever we would take expired food off the shelves, we'd come in the next day, and he had printed new expiration dates, pasted them on top of the old ones, and put the food back on the shelves. That happened consistently the entire time I worked there. Well, one day, I'd had enough of his shit. I called up the health department and reported him, then emailed corporate and filled them in on what was going on. Well, word got back to him, and when I went in the next day, I'd received a complaint and was promptly fired. I don't know about you, but I've never worked anywhere with a one-strike policy. Here's the thing, though. Since the day I started there, I'd been keeping records. I had copies of every schedule posted, and every pay stub I'd ever received. I went to the labor board that day, and picked up the paperwork I needed. See, when you don't get lunches, and you don't get paid the extra hour you're supposed to, the labor board can force the employer to pay you the money he owes you in one lump sum. So I filled out the paperwork and turned it in. My old boss wasn't so smug when he had to make a check to me for $2,600 right after receiving a hefty fine from the health department. Now, I'm working to get the labor board to force him to hire me back under the whistleblower clause. If he has to hire me, he also has to pay me back lost wages for the past few months. Also, my old co-workers get lunches now. So, I'm a middle-aged man getting divorced from a middle-aged woman who cheated on me. It's 2 years after she took off with her 22-year-old karate instructor, and the divorce agreement still isn't final. However, about a year in it had to be signed and all the aspects of it were retroactive, meaning, immediately upon signing it, I was a deadbeat dad with a few thousand owed for child support, and over 10,000 owed for alimony. I tried to fight the retroactive stuff, but my lawyer didn't see a way to stop it. So my ex put a lien on our jointly owned house, and froze my bank accounts, etc. My life has been heck. My credit rating is terrible, and I have to file for bankruptcy, and now, 2 years after she left, the house is for sale. It's a short sale, so the banks are freaking out over every penny. They worry about how much they'll lose, and when they heard that a lien was in place, they realized they'd lose even more, because the lien has to be paid, and it comes out of their share. My ex is now freaking out too, because the banks didn't accept an offer. They wanted more money. My ex sent an email to her lawyer, mine, but not to me, stating that I was holding up the sale because of the lien. She demanded that my lawyer undertake some legal process to have the lien removed. I got the delicious opportunity to tell her that I liked having the lien there. If the house sells, my back owed money is paid off, and if it doesn't sell, well, I have to declare bankruptcy anyway, so it doesn't matter. She is now going nuts in email, lashing out at everyone. Too long didn't read. Ex-wife is freaking out because house won't sell due to a lien she put on the house to try to bully me. Ain't karma a BTCH? When my parents got divorced, my mother got the bank to illegally freeze all the children's accounts in my father's, but left hers open. This remained for 2 years, illegally. Let me tell you, Shit hit the fan and I haven't spoken a word to her in the past 4 years. I've yelled and written many angry letters, but not a civil word has been spoken. Childish maybe, but she deserves it. Oh. She also hasn't paid child support for the 3 years she should have, until I was 18, and refuses to release money from a trust account set up in my name specifically for the purpose of education. Purely because in 2 years, the account will be dissolved, and the money within it will be split evenly between her and my father. I remember in kindergarten during free time, I always played with the Play-Doh and made small cars and snowmen. Because I was the quiet Asian kid in my class in this white Mexi community, I got picked less often than the fat kid. Anyway, I had a bully named Colin. Him and his friends would always smash my creations by getting my attention and smashing it with their hands. I cried and went to the teacher, but they would always play it off as an accident. One day I decided to stick a toothpick upright in a tree I made, and next thing you know, the toothpick was stuck in Colin's hand. I was sent to principal's office and changed classrooms. Too long didn't read, bully pierces himself with a toothpick I hid in some Play-Doh. Well, here's my favorite one. In 4th grade, during indoor recess, I unlocked my teacher's desk and another group of students went through her desk. A girl ratted me out, and I got a week of detention. Sadness for me. 3 years later, this person ended up in front of me in one of my classes and I noticed she would cheat on her tests by leaving a study sheet just on the floor. After class one day, I went to the teacher and explained that wink wink he should watch for people cheating extra carefully next time we had a test. Sure enough, next time out, he found her study sheet just laying there and she started crying and whatnot. That was my Count of Monte Cristo moment. I knew a kid who was an absolute terror. He would just be a dick for the sake of being a dick. One day my friends and I are at the park playing football and this kid ran up to us with a paintball gun and shot us all up at the park. Now we have paintball guns too, so if we wanted to shoot him up we could, but we knew it wasn't enough. This time this kid went too far. Since he lives near us, we know his family quite well and know that his mom is crazy controlling and mean as heck. We also knew for a fact that he did not have a paintball gun before, so he must have finally convinced his mom that he would be responsible with it, and she finally allowed him to buy one. Well, we took all our paintball guns and shot up every house on his block except for his. His house is within viewing distance of the park where play football, so we all got to watch and laugh as his dad was outside slamming his gun against the street and apologizing to the neighbors. He was crying like a baby, and it was glorious. I know this sounds mean, but if you knew this kid you would know how badly he deserved it. He broke my go-kart once. Frick him. I had a roommate years ago who would constantly steal from me, lie about it, and then threaten me when I asked about it. So the day before I moved out, I stuffed half a dozen frozen jumbo prawns inside his couch, zipped up the cushions, and left without a forwarding address. I bet he had a great summer. That was 6 years ago, and I still feel like it was a good choice. I once started a tech company and developed a very marketable product, being a techie who couldn't sell his way out of a paper bag. After about 4 years I eventually found a couple of partners to work with to help market and promote a business based on my tech and take things to the next level. They didn't, by the way, in my first mistake, and our contract wasn't written with adequate protection for me. My second mistake, since we were all friends and I never thought anything bad would happen. We still had our day jobs and things were progressing nicely on building a business while we each still had day jobs. We were starting to be successful and edging towards the ability to make quit your job kind of money. After a while my partners started acting strangely and started floating the great idea to form a new business. Form a new LLC and roll our existing successful business into it as one of the offerings which we would all make zillions from. They talked it up 4 weeks and eventually sent me a lengthy and confusing contract to sign. I knew right away the ideas for the other offerings for the new business were losers and got the suspicion that the only reason they wanted to do this was because they wanted to exploit the revenue from the existing emerging business and do away with me and the partnership. I smelled a rat and my spider senses were tingling. Since one of my roles was systems admin, I spent one afternoon perusing their email on our server and, in a matter of minutes, I found hard evidence of their plot to perform the aforementioned merger and promptly make use of a clause which would allow them to vote me out and leave me high and dry. It certainly explained why they were champing at the bit for me to hurry up and just sign the new contract already. Closer scrutiny of the proposed contract showed that they would have been able to screw me out of the deal with no payout and leave me with nothing. They were going to shaft me out of 8k hours of development time and were going to be making money off my technology for who knows how long. I immediately picked my jaw up off the floor, did some research, went to a lawyer, and devised a plan for me to be able to walk away from the partnership and operate the business on my own. This was tricky and took way too much time and money because of the lack of protection I had due to a lousy contract between us. I was successful and was able to oust them, and I still operate the business to this day, all on my own. Here's the revenge part. My now former partners went on to start their new business. One of the evil partners still had a day job as VP of sales at a company in the same industry as the new company they were building. I won't say who or what industry, but this was a clear conflict of interest in a narrow business space. This person was mining the Rolodex and stealing clients away with the goal of jumping ship and running the new company with a purloined client base. I knew all of this, and this was one of the reasons I didn't want to merge companies to begin with. Since this behavior is illegal, unethical, and just plain Nike, I waited a suitable amount of time to distance myself from the situation, then sent a package to the owner of the company for which the evil partner still worked and provided evidence to their efforts to undermine and steal all their clients. Results were as expected. Evil partner was fired and sued. This was years ago, and every time I remember what almost happened to me and the bullet that I dodged, I just laugh and thank my lucky stars. The fact that I was able to give it right back to evil partner makes me smile. So yes, revenge can be satisfying when applied to well-deserving assholes. Moral of the story: even if you have trust in your partners, money changes things. Get a lawyer and have a real contract written up to protect yourself. Don't try to screw over your partner if they can read your mail, or at least use mail when doing so. Reading others' mail is wrong. Don't do it unless you have to. Too long didn't read. I uncovered a plot by my business partners to screw me out of the business I had built, and I was able to turn the tables and screw them instead. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,